Yeah, we are talking about yeah. We have different kinds of fandoms in this room. Yes. Yeah. We have a lot of. No. It was.
Hello? Hello? Okay. 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 Hello. It's already 3 p.m., but we are still waiting for several delegations. So let's wait for 2-3 minutes and let's start. Can we do that? Okay, so dear panelists, while we are waiting for the delegations to come, maybe we can already go to the podium. We have 6 panelists, we have chairs over there. So please bring your documents, pencil, etc. to the podium. Thank you.
Oh, we're gonna.
Okay, Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation to our information session. We are going to start the information session, and our topic today of the information session is advancing disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation using nature-based solutions. My name is Soichiro Yasukawa. I'm a chief of the disaster risk reduction unit in natural science sector, and I'm going to be the moderator today. So today we are going to discuss with our 6 prominent panelists on how to promote nature-based solutions on disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptations and with you. So there are already many proven solutions on nature-based solutions around the globe for the risk of flood, landslide, coastal erosions, or like a salt intrusion, and so on. So today we are going to discuss among ourselves to discuss to identify the gaps or challenges or even the opportunities to scale up nature-based solutions for DRR, disaster risk reduction, and climate change adaptations. So we would like, at the end of this information session, we would like to find a way how we can promote nature-based solution as one of the solutions for DRR and climate change adaptation together with other gray solutions. Before proceeding, I would like to take a little bit of time of what UNESCO is doing on disaster risk reduction. We have 8 different thematic areas to support member states for disaster risk reduction, and one of them is nature-based solutions, together with such as early warning system or school safety or cultural heritage resilience. But nature-based solution, thanks to the big project funded by European Commissions, which is called Operandum, we accumulated a lot of experience and knowledge on the nature-based solutions. So we would like to work with you, academic, and also the delegations to promote these solutions. And before passing to the opening, I would also like to thank my team who has been working very hard on the project, Irina and Zara. Zara actually she's expecting a baby, so she stays at home today. And also my team, Leah, Mahmoud, and Faduma, and Pomeli, and also our teams did all the logistics, etc., and also the substance as well. And I also would like to thank the facility management people. There was a big problem on the equipment, but I think they finally managed to solve the issues. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Noeline Landry Lakutarisa, who is the Director of Ecology and Earth Science Division, Natural Sciences Sector, for the opening remarks. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of Mrs. Shamila Nair-Bedouel, Assistant Director General for Natural Sciences, it's my honor and my pleasure to welcome you this evening to this international conference on the use of natural-based solutions to manage hydrological risks. We are all aware of the devastating impact that extreme weather and geological events can have on our societies and economies. In the past year alone, natural hazards caused over 400 disasters worldwide, which took more than 10,000 lives. They caused about $250 billion in economic losses, affecting more than 100 million livelihoods. Scientists and policymakers across the globe are concerned by the increasing frequency and intensity of floods, landslides, storms, and other meteorological events, which are exacerbating social and economic challenges for many countries and jeopardizing their sustainable development. In parallel, we are facing widespread biodiversity loss. This is affecting the way in which ecosystems function and the benefits that they provide, including clean water and air, and productive land for forestry and agriculture. We must acknowledge nature's role in regulating the global climate, in reducing disaster risk, in providing food, water, and other vital resources, and in preventing the emergence of new diseases. The potential of nature to enhance global resilience in the face of growing disaster risk is already a common theme across major global policy frameworks, such as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, which is currently at its final stage of negotiation in Montreal at the COP15 of the CBD, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction at 2030. Not to mention the Paris Agreement on Climate Action and the Glasgow Climate Pact adopted at the COP26 last year. Mesdames et messieurs, le réseau mondial des réserves de biosphère, les sites du patrimoine mondial et les géoparcs représentent plus de 2000 sites de par le monde et couvrent environ 6% de la surface de la Terre. Ce sont autant de territoires qui peuvent servir d'observatoire du climat et de terrain d'apprentissage pour les approches durables visant à construire des sociétés résilientes, mais aussi à renforcer les liens entre les patrimoines culturels et naturels et consolider à la fois l'inclusion sociale et l'égalité des sexes. Le panel d'aujourd'hui mettra en lumière les différentes façons dont les solutions fondées sur la nature atténuent l'impact des catastrophes environnementales. Ces études de cas mettront en évidence comment l'UNESCO, à travers ses programmes, promeut la production des connaissances collectives en faisant se rencontrer tous les porteurs de savoir, les scientifiques, les peuples autochtones, les communautés locales, mais aussi les jeunes et les femmes pour favoriser le développement durable et la réconciliation de l'humain avec la nature. Au nom de l'UNESCO, je suis fière d'ouvrir la discussion du panel d'aujourd'hui. J'attends avec impatience les discussions fructueuses et j'espère que nous pourrons faire progresser ensemble nos objectifs communs de promotion du développement durable et de la résilience mondiale aux catastrophes. Je vous remercie de votre attention.
Thank you very much, Noeline. So we would like to start panel discussions, but let us excuse ourselves to sit like this, and we are going to make a presentation on the floor without going to the podium. Thank you. So we would like to start panel discussions. We have 6 panelists on the podium. We have tried to diversify the panelists. So we have two panelists from the academics, one participant from UN organizations, one participant from European Commission, and 2 participants from UNESCO Natural Sciences sector. So we would like to start from my side to the left side. So first presentation is by Dr. Fabrice Leno, who is from University of Glasgow, he has been a good collaborator for the EU Horizon 2020 Nature-Based Solutions Operandum. So we are going to ask each panelist for 10 minutes interventions, and we would like to ask each participant to focus on how your institution or how your program try to promote nature-based solutions. Sorry, Fabrice, floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. Just making sure it works, yes. So good afternoon, everyone. I was asked to make an introduction to nature-based solutions. Particularly, I hope it will be useful for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with the concept so far. And I'm going to focus on nature-based solutions for a specific societal challenge, which is disaster risk reduction. When we think about natural hazards, for example, coastal hazards such as storm surges, we traditionally protect our coastlines with engineering infrastructures, as you can see on the left there. But increasingly, through concepts such as nature-based solutions, we're considering ecosystem-based approaches which allow us to address and mitigate these hazards. And of course, you can combine the two. They're then called hybrid solutions, where you have a mix of this engineering solution and these nature-based solutions. The concept of nature-based solution is relatively recent. There were 2 definitions that were put forward by the IUCN and the European Commission around 2016. In 2022, the UN Environment Assembly agreed on the definition for nature-based solutions, which you can see here. I broke it down into pieces. It's not written like that, but the text is exactly the same as in the documents. Basically, nature-based solutions are actions that allow us to protect, conserve, restore, and sustainably use and manage what our natural or modified environments. And for what? Basically, the key concern here is to address societal challenges. When I started, I mentioned disaster risk as one of the societal challenges. There are others, such as climate change, adaptation and mitigation, food security, water security, etc. And what is very important is that when we deploy these nature-based solutions, it's to provide both social, human, and biodiversity benefits. So I didn't read the whole definition, but these are the key points that you can see in the definition. Predating this definition, the IUCN in 2016 had defined nature-based solution as an umbrella concept. And under that umbrella concept, you had many types of approaches that were falling under them. And I highlighted in bold here two that are relevant for the discussion today, which is ecosystem-based adaptation and ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction. And incidentally, most of these approaches have been defined, have had standards, have had principles developed before the principles and the definitions and the standards for nature-based solution. And I'll come back to that towards the end. I'm not going to get technical here, but because we're focusing on disaster risk reduction, what I want to emphasize is the fact that when we deploy nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction, the principal aim is to reduce the risks to humans, the risks to ecosystems. And if you look at the vertical axis at the top, this is where we start perhaps with a certain level of risk. And the point of deploying the NbS is to reduce this risk with time, depending on the type of solution that you're doing, until you reach a maximum disaster risk reduction potential of the solution that you're deploying. And that's the key point when we want to talk about NbS for eco-DRR. It is really to reduce the risk. Why do I emphasize that? Because actually when you deploy nature-based solutions, you also benefit on multiple fronts. If you think about what is known as ecosystem services that are provided by ecosystem-based approaches, you will get regulating services. This is an example for mangroves, so I'm taking you to a more tropical environment. But mangroves can store carbon, can regulate erosion, can protect you from coastal hazards, etc., etc. That's perhaps what we are aiming at when you're working in disaster risk reduction. But in addition, you will have so-called provisioning services, so you can extract fish, seafood from these systems, as long as you do it sustainably, of course, firewood, etc., in the same processes. And then you have the cultural services. And this is recreation, tourism, and cultural heritage, and notions of this type. So in addition to achieving the main goal that you want with nature-based solution, reducing risks, you also get all these additional benefits that you may not get with other solutions, such as engineering solution. Just to give you a concrete example from the Operandum project, of which I'm part of, this is a case study that we have in northeast coast of Scotland, and you can see that there is a steep cliff and houses and infrastructure on top of the cliffs. And these cliffs are subject to landslides and also coastal and surface erosion, and therefore the inhabitants on top of these cliffs are at risk from these hazards. And the solutions that are proposed through the Operandum project by the colleagues from Glasgow Caledonian University are to put in place nature-based solutions, and in this case, live ground anchors and live pole drains. And you can see some of the images of what this is here. So instead of having a purely engineering solution, you have a solution that is soil and water bioengineering techniques that in some cases mixes the natural and the engineering solutions to try to reduce these risks. So we have these solutions, but how do communities, local people perceive these solutions? What you have here is a diagram that shows an extent from what we call green solutions, which are nature-based solutions, to gray solutions, which are the engineering solutions, which I mentioned at the beginning, and in the middle you have the hybrid solutions. And these are results from the case study that I presented just before in Scotland. As a person living there, what would you prefer to have and why? Would you prefer to have a gray solution? Would you prefer to have a green solution or hybrid solution? And what tilts your decision towards one end of the spectrum to the other? And what is interesting is that there is generally a preference for gray solution because there is a feeling that there is more empirical evidence that they are going to reduce the risks, that they are more effective than any other types of solution. In some cases, there is a preference for the green solutions because they are more cost effective, they're more aesthetic, more pleasing to have, and they favor biodiversity. And of course, you have a cluster also in the middle that favors both types of solution. So it is key, basically, to understand how people perceive any type of solution, really, but in particular, nature-based solutions, which is the topic of this conference, in order to address concerns they may have around these solutions. And in this case, it is particularly evident that if you want to encourage more uptake of nature-based solutions, you have to provide more scientific evidence as to their effectiveness. And you have to put this in language that is understood by everyone. So in order to also bring rigor to the way we deploy nature-based solutions, the IUCN presented recently a set of 8 criteria and 28 indicators to help deploying these nature-based solutions. And here you have the 8 criteria. I'm not going to go in detail into them, but you have to make sure, for example, that they're economically feasible, that there is inclusive governance to have all the stakeholders involved in the design, in the development, and the deployment of these NBSs. And for each one of these 8 criteria, you have a series of indicators. So again, I'm not going to read them to you, but what I have there as C13 basically means that it's an indicator that is for the first criteria and is indicator number 3 in that series. So you have guidance as to how you can go step by step or the factors you need to consider in terms of deploying nature-based solutions. The European Commission also has published guidelines on how you can determine the effectiveness of these solutions, and this was released also very recently. It addresses various societal challenges. I've highlighted here the 2 that are relevant for here today on climate resilience and natural and climate hazards. And again here, these are very big texts that give you very detailed information as to what you can monitor to showcase the effectiveness of the solutions. To come back to part of the beginning of my presentation, what is important to note again is that ecosystem-based adaptation, ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction predated the concepts of NbS, and there you already have technical guidelines available for deploying ecosystem-based adaptation measures or ecosystem-based disaster risk reduction measures. So these are also very valuable tools in order to encourage the adoption of NbS. So to finish, what I want to emphasize is that nature-based solutions have been adopted, deployed increasingly in recent years with the aim of reducing disaster risks. There is more and more evidence that is put forward as to their capacity to reduce the risks. And there is, as I've shown, an increasing number of guidelines, principles, standards, and indicators that are available to track. But we also have to keep in mind that this is not a solution for everything or that is going to work all the time. And there are several things that we need to be very careful in considering when we want to deploy these NBSs. And that's to have a very thorough understanding of the hazards and the system that we're working with, both on the biophysical side of it, but also on the socio-economic side of things. We have to ensure that all the stakeholders are involved in the co-design, in the co-development and the co-deployment of these NBS. And we have to have long-term monitoring. In the graph that I showed you, for example, you could see that reducing the risks may take time because nature-based solutions are natural and they will have, depending on what you're putting in place, a time to grow, to deploy, to become ecosystems basically that are becoming operational. So it may take time, so you have to have this long-term monitoring in place. You have to be very transparent about what they can do and what they cannot do. Okay, and here, in many cases, you may say nature-based solutions can do that much, but if you want to reduce the risks more, maybe you need to combine them with engineering structure. And basically, to finish, make sure that the guidelines, the standards, the safeguarding is all in place in order not to create harm by deploying an NBS in a wrong place with the wrong type of components, because that can create more damage in the end than it solves problems. So that's the end of my intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fabrice. Maybe we can have like one question from the floor, and yes, because it seems we have plenty of time. Maybe let's accept one question from the floors. And if you have any questions here, please raise your hand so that our colleague will come with you with the microphone. No. Okay, so just as an icebreaker, I have a question, one question for you, because in a risk perception graph, perception chart, you said that people feel that a gray solution is more cost effective. No, the other side, the other way.
The green solution is more cost effective.
Okay, no big deal, because we have been hearing many comments from the stakeholders that nature-based solution might not be a cost-effective. And no, I just would like to know if you have some studies or, yeah, I somewhere read about it, but if you could elaborate a little bit more about this cost-effectivity of the nature-based solutions.
Sure. So there are many studies that are now starting to look into the cost-effectiveness of these nature-based solutions. And they show a very favorable outcome for nature-based solutions in the sense that they are more cost-effective than engineering solutions. It's not always the case. And in our referendum project, we actually show this, where there is a lot of cost-effectiveness in most of the nature-based solutions that are deployed in the project, with some few exceptions. You have to remember that they're becoming cost-effective because of all the additional services they provide. And of course, if you do not include these services in your computations, well, maybe then they're not that cost effective when compared to engineering solution. But once you start factoring in the value of all the ecosystem services that they provide in addition to their main function of disaster risk reduction, then they become very cost effective in most cases.
Thank you very much. So let's go to the next panelist, Mr. Sebastian Penzini, who is Regional Deputy Chief at the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction at the Brussels office. I think he is in charge of Europe and Central Asia.
Exactly.
So floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to apologize because I understood that we have new participants this afternoon, so I had to use again some slides because I was presenting this morning, so you will see for the ones already present this morning some of the same slides. So what I will try to do very briefly, because we have a number of great experts on nature-based solutions, is maybe to go back a bit to the overall framework, which is of course about disaster risk reduction, and which is the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which was endorsed in 2015 by the UN member state. And it is a framework, I would say, in which nature-based solutions actually should take now a greater place and should be embedded at different levels for being a concrete part of the solution for building resilience. So I will not go back specifically to the figures. I think that Mrs. Raundi Rakoto Arisoa already told you what we are facing in Europe, in Central Asia, and globally in terms of climate-related events, in terms of extreme events, which are more frequent, more intense, and which actually provide these figures of increasing trends for economic and human losses. And the overall, I would say, not conclusion, but elements that we are sharing is that more has to be done for reducing these risks and for addressing resilience of populations. So in this context, what is interesting is that the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction has reached now the midterm of its implementation process, so from 2015 until 2030. And we have started with member states at the global level and in our region, Europe and Central Asia, to conduct a very important exercise for take stock of the progresses, of the gaps, of the challenges in implementing this framework, in trying to reduce risks, to understand it, and to take the concrete actions for, again, building resilience. And what we can say already, the main report and findings will be disclosed early 2023 for the midterm review, but we have already some initial findings, especially coming from our region. And if we divide it into the main priorities of the framework, we can say that in terms of risk knowledge, we have already some good progresses because countries conduct more regular and more coherent national risk assessment, which are based quite often on better data, which are based also on the use and more regular use of GIS system, and also with availability of systems and mechanisms which are extremely useful for the different stakeholders in Europe and in Central Asia, in particular the ones developed by the European Commission. We can think about Copernicus and a lot of other tools. That's for the good side of the coin for risk knowledge, but at the same time, we can see with the COVID-19 pandemic and many other events that the risks are becoming systemic, compounding, and we have to better understand this evolving nature of risk, this systemic nature of risk, and this is still very limited in terms of understanding throughout the region and at the different levels and across the different stakeholders. So this is already a gap in terms of the first priority. And I think it echoes already what my predecessor said about the need for better and more evidence-based information for making the right choices and for demonstrating, for example, the efficiency of the nature-based solutions. In terms of governance, which is also an important priority of the Sendai framework, we have seen a number of progresses in Europe and Central Asia. These progresses are quite a lot about the development of national strategies, of better plans and longer-term vision for disaster risk reduction. We have seen a number of binding documents emerging from different countries, and this is an important progress. We have figures for that, which actually show how many countries from 2015 to today started to develop a multi-stakeholder process for developing and endorsing a national strategy. So this is something to build on. And of course, it is also in this kind of documents that we can embed the good solutions, and nature-based solution is, of course, part of it. At the same time, we have also to address the gaps in terms of risk governance, and we have to focus our efforts on the fragmentations of roles and responsibilities. We still see that in many countries, the responsibilities for disaster risk reduction is spread into different ministries, into different actors, and the communication, the collaboration, and the coherent approach among these actors is not always answered. And this is something to extremely focus on in the next years, because as we are going to see again this afternoon, working, for example, on climate action and disaster reduction as a whole thing is a must if we want to be successful. Another element which I would like to emphasize here about risk governance is the need further and more to be inclusive, to consult and to give a say to all different actors. We have already heard about local people, about indigenous knowledge, about the civil society, also of course about the private sector. We addressed the question this morning as well, and it's extremely important that all the mechanisms we develop are multi-stakeholder and inclusive by nature. And finally, the third priority I would address here as part of the findings from this midterm review is about investment. And this one is maybe the most challenging, the most concerning, because investments are not yet there sufficiently, both from public and private actors. And again, we can go back to your graph about the perception, and disaster risk reduction is still too often seen as a cost and not as an investment. And we have definitely to flip, if I may say that, this way, to flip this perception for really convincing and demonstrating that everything we are doing, and especially nature-based solutions, are cost-effective and are an investment for the future and not a cost for something which will never happen, because, of course, as we have seen recently, it happens. So very briefly about the European Roadmap for Disaster Risk Reduction 2021-2030. This document, which is of course available online, is actually the document developed and endorsed by member states in Europe and Central Asia, based on a very large consultation of more than 100 stakeholders, and which actually tackles the specificities of this large region, but there are some commonalities, I would say, and which actually try to accelerate the implementation of the Sendai framework through some specific elements which are also based on the priorities. So improving and strengthening the risk knowledge, putting the stakeholders together, improving the science policy interface, bringing the academic and the scientific community to the table of the decision makers and the policy makers. It is also the need to further invest in critical infrastructures, to invest in resilient infrastructures in terms of transport, energy, education, health, etc. And it is also the need for having preparedness system, early warning systems, which are efficient, but also gender responsive, age sensitive, etc., etc. So I will go very quickly on that, but I really invite you to go to the UNDR website for checking the details of the roadmap and maybe for, in a way, thinking about what your contribution to this roadmap can be. So in terms of now, in a way, building on this midterm review and accelerating the implementation of the framework in Europe and Central Asia, we have already taken some actions. We have partnered with member states, with Greece, with Croatia. We are going to partner with Romania in a few months for organizing action-oriented dialogues. The first ones addressed, of course, what we have faced during the last summer in Europe, which are wildfires of extreme intensity, structural drought, heat waves in urban areas, and all these events which actually impacted populations in the Mediterranean basin, but not only. That's one element. We also tried with Croatia and 9 other member states to address the question of risk financing, and I think it was a successful event with a lot of capacity building opportunities. And we are going, because it's also another important element, to tackle the question of risk communication, risk perception, and disinformation, which is another very important topic to address in another day in February in Romania, and we may invite you actually to attend these technical sessions. So that's one element for using this convening power for working on disaster risk reduction. I mentioned this morning that these action-oriented dialogues might be also an opportunity for talking about nature-based solutions, for finding partners and organizing a specific debate and action-oriented dialogue on this topic. Why not? And we are open for suggestions. The other main element to take into consideration is how to support member states, local and national authorities to work on disaster risk reduction, and of course to embed nature-based solutions. So we are working with a number of actors for doing that, for improving risk knowledge through risk indexes, through national disaster loss databases, through also portals of disaster-related data and other elements. We can, of course, go into the details. We are also supporting development of better governance mechanisms with support to development of strategies, with support to review and implementation and financing of strategies. It's exactly where we can plug the nature-based solution when it is suitable for a context or another. And we are also working directly at the local level because they are at the front line. They are the ones operating, facing these disasters, and we are supporting them in developing local plans and city resilience plans, where again, we have seen already some very good examples of nature-based solutions. So these are not, of course, specifically the elements about the topic of today, but it's exactly the frame where these elements can fit in. I will not mention the partnerships. I already mentioned it this morning, but the slides will be shared. So just to, in a way, start with normally what's supposed to be said directly this afternoon. If we are to be successful about nature-based solution, what we have to do, and it is also a conclusion of what I said until now, is to have an integrated approach and to stop working in silos and to, of course, for the first thing, put climate action and disaster risk reduction together. And you can read, like me, on the slides, that the context we have today, what the last COP said, what the IPCC report say, is that we have to be prepared for a warming world, for a warming environment where disasters will become more frequent, more intense, and where adaptation will become more and more difficult. And this is the main reason why today it is critically important to put disaster risk reduction and climate action in a coherent and, again, multi-stakeholder approach where all these different elements are addressed in a coherent way. So if we are talking a bit about the challenges that we are still facing today, and maybe it's a good way also to see what has to be done for overcoming it. Of course, there are between climate change action and disaster risk reduction some different understanding. Of course, climate change action is, in a way, from my perspective, mainly focusing still on mitigation, where adaptation is a must that has to be addressed as much as mitigation is. We have also different timescales. We have different perception of the know-how. It's also difficult to actually translate the climate information into concrete disaster risk reduction action. And then when we arrived at the end of this, in a way, knowledge aspect, we are entering the challenge of the institutional silos where different actors, different ministries are dealing with different actions and prevent from having an integrated approach. And these are really the elements to tackle if we want to be successful in having an integrated approach and in having the solutions adapted for that. So I will be very quick about this slide. It is, again, a demonstration about why it is important to think together climate action, mitigation, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction. The one phrase is maybe meaningful. Risk reduction cannot occur without the use of climate information, but climate change adaptation will not be successful without risk reduction at the core of it. So if we keep actually this phrase, I would say in our log frame, in our application for working, I think we will be on the right direction. And if we have just to stick and to target on the final result, what would be extremely effective and efficient in the next years, and which is not still, I would say, sufficiently used, is an integrated and unique disaster risk reduction and national adaptation plan, and not two different documents, two different strategies, and two different approaches. So if I will also be very brief about the comprehensive risk management approach, in short, what it says is that things have to be developed on the same way, talking about planning, talking about analysis, talking about implementation and monitoring. These actions have to go in parallel, meaning together in parallel. The second part of the graph explains how, based on some of the UNDRR and UN tools, such as the risk information exchange, we can develop common understanding about climate change scenarios, about climate information and disaster risk assessment, how we can build capacities from that, how we can package and adapt our trainings of the different actors, local actors and stakeholders, and how, based on this, we can develop and also work in synergy with policymakers for having integrated approaches and plans and strategies. At the end of the day, if we are successful with this comprehensive risk management approach, we have very successful outcomes and outputs. I just copy pasted some of it here. You can see extremely good examples of nature-based solutions embedded in integrated plan for climate action and disaster risk reduction. I can, of course, here mention what Paris is doing. It was already mentioned this morning, and maybe we have speakers about that, so I will not be long. We have also very far away some countries which already developed their national adaptation plan with disaster risk reduction mainstreamed in it. And we have also some very good basis of analysis and knowledge developed in Europe, such what UK has done. And finally, if you wish actually to go a bit more into the details, the UN have developed a number of technical guidance which are really focusing on these different elements: development of national strategies, development of local strategies for urban areas, and also very recently one specific guidance about nature-based solutions, which is here and which you can find on the UNDRR website. So I hope I was not too long, but this is just a frame in which actually all your very good examples and projects, I would say, should and must find their place for supporting the authorities at different levels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Yeah, maybe if you have questions from the floors, yes, maybe we can have one question at this time. And if you have questions, yeah, please raise your hand.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing all these insights and frameworks and approaches from UNDRR. I'm Irina, part of disaster risk reduction team, and of course, well, here at UNESCO, we're working in different regions, as you are. Your office is covering Europe and Central Asia, so this pan-European region, and maybe just to give some flavor, and maybe to our member states who will be interested in concrete examples, would you like to give us some examples, because we're focusing quite a lot on Europe this day, maybe some insights, projects, your actions on Central Asia?
Yeah, definitely, and you are very right, because Central Asia is one of our main priorities for many obvious reasons, including actually the risks these countries face in terms of glacier melting, in terms of earthquake, in terms of also drought, etc. So you are very right. We are currently, if we are talking about UNDRR specifically, implementing a project, a large project, which is funded by the European Commission, working on two dimensions. But again, I would say putting into action the words of the Sendai framework. So the first output is about risk knowledge, where we are actually working with Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan on first risk perception, assessment of DRR capacities, and then establishment of a national disaster loss database for them actually to be equipped with the sufficient elements for better knowing about the risks they face. And then the second output is divided in two different sites. One is at local level, where we have built, I believe, very solid relations with the different committees for emergency situations, and where we support them in establishing national platforms for disaster risk reduction. So exactly what we were talking about, bringing the different stakeholders together around the same table, and then supporting them in, if it is the need, developing a national strategy, or maybe discussing an existing strategy with them, trying to integrate some elements that we have, and then not scaling down, but adapting these national strategies at the local level in working with Tashkent, with Dushanbe, with Bishkek, and Nur Sultan, and the mayor offices for really diving on the resilience assessment of the cities and the development of the local plans. So these elements are currently being implemented. What is also important to note is that nothing can be done if we are not to some extent addressing the sub-regional level, because some of the risks that these countries face are transboundary. And we have the chance to have over there, based in Almaty, a sub-regional entity, which is already bringing together several countries. And we are also building the capacities, expertise capacities, knowledge capacities of the center for it to become really the one shop to go. We discussed about that this morning, where the countries will be able to get expertise and to work together more closely and more coherently on disaster risk reduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let's go to the next speaker. I would like to ask again our colleague Noéline for your presentations.
Thank you, Soshiro. I will speak in French, so you have translation, please, for those who don't speak French. So my presentation will be on the Man and the Basser programme, le programme sur l'homme et la biosphère. Et je vais présenter quelques exemples de projets que nous mettons en œuvre dans le cadre de ce programme et qui sont des projets qui sont basés sur les solutions basées sur la nature dans les réserves de biosphère. Alors tout d'abord, le programme sur l'homme et la biosphère de l'UNESCO, qu'est-ce que c'est, d'où ça vient, depuis quand? Alors c'est un programme qui est né il y a 51 ans maintenant, en 1971. Et cette image, qui est une image qui a été produite au tout début du programme, donne vraiment l'essence de ce qu'est ce programme. Vous avez à gauche un schéma où vous avez la nature dans une bouteille. Et ça, c'était la conception de la conservation dans les années 70. On mettait la nature sous cloche et surtout, on faisait tout pour que l'homme ne puisse pas interagir avec cette nature sous cloche. Et le programme sur l'homme et la biosphère a été le premier programme qui a dit que on ne pouvait pas régler un problème si on mettait la solution du problème hors de la solution. Et donc, à droite, vous avez ce que le programme sur l'homme et la biosphère a apporté. Le programme a cassé la bouteille. Le programme a cassé la bouteille parce que pour le programme sur l'homme et la biosphère, la nature et l'homme ne font qu'un. Et on ne pourra jamais régler les problèmes environnementaux si on ne règle pas en même temps les problèmes qui sont liés au développement humain. Et donc, ce programme qui depuis 50 ans existe, est le programme qui a vraiment commencé à formaliser les principes du développement durable, et nous avons fêté l'année dernière les 50 ans du programme. Alors, ce programme se base sur des sites qu'on appelle les réserves de biosphère. Il y a 738 réserves de biosphère de par le monde, dans 134 pays. Et les réserves de biosphère couvrent 5% de la superficie terrestre. Et les réserves de biosphère ne sont pas des aires protégées, ce sont des sites où il y a des aires protégées, mais ce sont des sites qui sont habités. Et l'ensemble du réseau mondial comprend 250 millions d'habitants, ce qui est un réseau énorme et qui est un réseau qui, nous le pensons et nous le voyons tous les jours, peut vraiment faire bouger les choses, faire bouger les frontières. Et donc, les réserves de biosphère, ce sont des sites d'apprentissage pour le développement durable, c'est ce que nous voulons en faire, et elles permettent beaucoup de choses, ces réserves de biosphère. Elles permettent de tester des approches interdisciplinaires, parce qu'une réserve de biosphère, c'est un socio-écosystème. Donc, c'est un système où vous avez évidemment des écosystèmes, et vous avez aussi des systèmes sociaux. Et donc, pour pouvoir comprendre les socio-écosystèmes, il faut absolument avoir des approches interdisciplinaires, ce que nous mettons en œuvre, et nous faisons le suivi des changements et des interactions entre différents systèmes. Et le réseau mondial des réserves de biosphère couvre pratiquement tous les écosystèmes qu'on peut trouver sur Terre. Et également, nous travaillons dans ces sites à mieux comprendre les conflits pour mieux les prévenir et également mieux gérer la biodiversité. Et donc, dans ces sites, dans ces réserves de biosphère, nous mettons en œuvre des solutions basées sur la nature afin d'atteindre le développement durable, de renforcer la résilience climatique et de conserver la biodiversité. Alors, les réserves de biosphère, elles ont 3 fonctions et elles ont 3 zones interconnectées. Elles ont une fonction de conservation qui est généralement mise en œuvre dans une des zones que l'on appelle l'aire centrale, une des zones, mais il peut en avoir plusieurs, et qui sont généralement des aires protégées, et qui sont protégées par les lois nationales. Et donc ça, c'est la fonction de conservation. Ensuite, il y a une autre fonction qui est une fonction de développement durable, de développement des populations, et ça, on le fait à travers des approches innovantes pour permettre le développement des populations, mais bien sûr, tout en conservant la biodiversité, puisque ce sont les deux piliers des fonctions des réserves de biosphère. Et enfin, il y a une troisième fonction qu'on appelle le soutien logistique, qui était une fonction, en fait, qui permet, à travers la recherche, le suivi des sites, l'éducation ou encore la formation, de mettre en œuvre les 2 fonctions de conservation et de développement durable. Et c'est donc ces 3 fonctions qui font les réserves de biosphère. Et elles sont donc généralement en zone. Le site est en 3 zones. Il y a une zone pour la conservation, une zone pour le développement et partout, vous pourrez avoir des soutiens logistiques. Alors, quelques exemples d'actions dans les réserves de biosphère. Le premier présentateur a beaucoup parlé des mangroves et je lui suis très reconnaissante parce que il a dit beaucoup de choses qu'on essaie de retrouver en restaurant ces sites. Et vous voyez que les deux premiers projets là qui sont sur la diapositive, ce sont des projets de restauration. On en a parlé, la restauration des écosystèmes, la restauration écologique est un des éléments des solutions basées sur la nature. Et donc, je vous ai montré ici 2 exemples. Un exemple que l'on a mis en œuvre au niveau du bassin du lac Tchad. Et on a ici restauré une plaine dunaire pour lutter contre la désertification et pour lutter contre l'ensablement. Et nous connaissons tous la spiruline, peut-être que certains d'entre vous en prenaient. Et cette spiruline, en fait, ce sont les femmes du lac Tchad qui l'ont donnée au monde. C'est là-bas qu'elles ont traditionnellement cette spiruline dans leur tradition, et c'est des scientifiques français d'ailleurs qui ont découvert, entre guillemets, cette spiruline et qui l'ont ensuite partagée de par le monde. Donc, elles nous ont donné la spiruline et il était important pour nous, pour des questions culturelles, mais aussi pour des questions de santé, de permettre que la production de cette spiruline soit plus durable. Et donc, il était important de restaurer l'écosystème à travers lequel cette spiruline pouvait être récoltée, puisqu'elle la collecte, elle ne la produisent pas. Et donc là, nous avons restauré cette plaine dunaire. Et sur cette diapositive, je vous ai mis aussi les différents objectifs de développement durable que ces activités permettent d'atteindre, et également les différents objectifs du cadre de Sendai que je ne vais pas donner ici, mais pour vous dire que ces activités vraiment sont tout à fait permanentes pour une pléthore d'objectifs de développement durable et pour beaucoup aussi d'objectifs du cadre de Sendai. Dans la restauration des mangroves, ce projet, on l'a mis en œuvre en Amérique latine, dans 7 réserves de biosphère, en Amérique latine et dans les Caraïbes. Et alors, cette activité, elle est faite en co-construction avec plusieurs acteurs. Nous avons la communauté scientifique, Nous avons les communautés locales et nous avons aussi les systèmes de gouvernance locale. Parce qu'en matière de soutenabilité et de durabilité de la restauration de ces écosystèmes, il était absolument important que la gouvernance dans les réserves de biosphère puisse être un élément de soutien à cette restauration sur le long terme. Donc, on travaille beaucoup aussi avec les structures de gouvernance locale et c'est un projet qui a démarré au mois d'août cette année et nous espérons vraiment beaucoup nous y mettons beaucoup d'espoir parce que c'est un projet qui est vraiment extrêmement intégré, comme le disait mon prédécesseur. L'approche intégrée est quelque chose qui est important et dans ce projet, c'est vraiment quelque chose que nous avons essayé de promouvoir. Le troisième projet, c'est un projet d'observation du changement climatique et de la biodiversité dans la réserve de biosphère de Yangambi. Alors, certains d'entre vous, peut-être, connaissez ce nom, Yangambi, qui est un nom mythique, parce que ça a été, dans les années 30-40, un des grands centres de recherche de l'écologie tropicale. Et ce centre est donc toujours, il existe toujours. Et que faisons-nous dans cette réserve de biosphère de Yangambi? Nous travaillons avec l'Université de Ghent, qui a mis en place une tour à flux de covariance. Et les tours à flux de covariance, ce sont des immenses tours qui culminent à 15 mètres de la canopée et qui permettent, à partir de différents capteurs, de mesurer les échanges des gaz à effet de serre. Et cette tour à flux qui est dans la réserve de biosphère de Yangambi, c'est la seule tour à flux en Afrique. Et elle est donc en plein milieu de la forêt d'Afrique centrale. Et elle est mise en réseau avec d'autres tours à flux qu'il y a de par le monde, et en particulier en Amazonie et dans la forêt de l'Est de l'Asie. Et cette tour à flux nous permet d'avoir des données scientifiques. Et on a parlé tout à l'heure qu'il fallait avoir des données scientifiques pour venir en appui aux politiques et venir en appui à toutes les activités qu'on fait. Donc, cette tour à flux va permettre vraiment de mesurer quels sont les effets du changement climatique au niveau de la forêt équatoriale de l'Afrique centrale. Et c'est donc une activité qui est extrêmement importante pour les données, mais également pour la politique, parce que ça va permettre au pays de répondre à tous les engagements qu'il y a à travers l'agrément de Paris, à travers tous les autres systèmes de suivi des impacts des changements climatiques. Alors, le dernier projet dont je vais vous parler, c'est un projet que l'on a mis en œuvre avec la Commission océanographique internationale, la COI, intergouvernementale, pardon, la COI, qui est également abritée par l'UNESCO, qui est un de nos programmes ici. Et la COI fait beaucoup de choses dans le domaine océanique et surtout, ils sont à l'origine de beaucoup de systèmes d'alerte précoce pour les tsunamis et pour les risques marins. Et donc, nous travaillons avec eux et nous, dans ce projet, nous préparons les communautés locales aux risques côtiers. Et ces activités, elles sont des activités qui permettent de s'adapter aux risques, mais aussi de faire la mitigation des risques. Donc, on a les deux aspects ici que l'on met en œuvre dans ce projet. Donc, vous avez là différents types d'activités que l'on met en place, donc des activités d'adaptation au risque. On a la cartographie des inondations, par exemple, les cartes d'évacuation lorsqu'il y a un événement qui arrive. En termes de mitigation, On a des activités pour simuler le fonctionnement de l'écosystème, pour avoir un meilleur suivi et une meilleure connaissance de l'écosystème. Ou encore, on met en œuvre des solutions qui sont fondées sur la nature pour réduire les risques, comme par exemple la plantation des mangroves dont j'ai parlé tout à l'heure. Alors, ce projet, il est en phase pilote au niveau du Costa Rica. Nous sommes en train de travailler là-dessus, dans la réserve de biosphère de Savagré, et il a pour objectif, je dirais, d'être une phase pilote que l'on va répliquer dans toutes nos réserves de biosphère côtière. Il y en a à peu près une centaine dans l'ensemble du réseau que nous avons. Donc voilà rapidement présenté quelques exemples. Nous en avons d'autres, bien sûr, et pour le programme MAB, les solutions basées sur la nature, ce sont des solutions qui sont celles du long terme et que, comme on disait aussi tout à l'heure, ce sont des investissements sur le futur et nous sommes bien engagés, nous sommes bien persuadés de continuer sur ce chemin-là. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Noeline. If you have questions from the floors, I would like to have one at this time, and then we will do a question and answer after all the panelists. If you have any questions, please raise your hand so that my colleague will go bring your microphone. Okay, so if not, maybe I have a question for you because biosphere reserves, I remember there are like more than 700 sites around the globe, and also the size, we say that it's the size of China. It's a huge coverage if you combine everything. And I think it's a good laboratories to try many solutions, including nature-based solutions. And I'm wondering, in this program on manned biosphere reserves, is there any action plans or etc. or guidance to encourage the site managers to work on the disaster risk reduction or climate change?
Yes, of course. We have an action plan which is ending in 2025. And one of the actions of this action plan is related to climate change and disaster risk reduction. And that's why you have seen that we have this project in Costa Rica. We are very much engaged in mitigating and preventing and adapting to this kind of risks, because as I said, in our world network, we have almost 100 sites in the coastal and marine area. So it's very important for us to provide solutions to these communities which are working with us for the disaster risk reductions. And the climate change in the Lima Action Plan is a central part of our action plan. And in 2025, it is ending, and we are going to have another 10-year action plan. I'm sure that climate change will be in the center, but maybe we can put more emphasis in the disaster risk reduction. So we'll be very happy to work with your community to make sure that in the next 10 years of action plan for the Bass Reserve, we really tackle these disaster risk reduction issues.
Thank you very much. So let's go to the next panelist. I would like to invite Dr. Rahma El-Fitini, who is the Chief of the Capacity Development and Water Family Coordination Section of UNESCO Natural Sciences Sector. So floor is yours.
Thank you, Soichiro. And thank you also for inviting me today and to share our another UNESCO ecohydrology approach, which also part of the nature-based solution approach to this special conference. Can I have my slide? I have, okay, sorry. Okay, so I'm Rahma El-Fitri, Chief of Section for Capacity Development and Water Family Coordination. But at the same time, I'm also in charge for eco-hydrology program, which is under my section, as well as water quality and also water education program. So I will share with you about the UNESCO eco-hydrology approach as a nature-based solution for improving resilience and adaptation to climate change. This UNESCO eco-hydrology approach is under water division in UNESCO. So as you know, water is a central for all SDG, as you can see there in this figure. And it is also a connector for others main global agendas, such including Sendai framework, which our colleagues just presented just now, also Paris Agreement, urban agenda, and all main world agenda. So it is very important. And in line to that, UNESCO within this IHP framework, which currently at the 9th phase, and starting this year, 2022 until 2029, we focus on the science for a water secure world as a changing environment. And this IHP program for promoting water science and interdisciplinary and integrated approach for achieving water security especially, and also developing capacity for integrated water resources management. And I will show you a little bit about our intergovernmental hydrological program, which currently we have 5 priority areas. And if you can see there, first is focusing on scientific research and innovation, and then second for water education, third data and knowledge gaps. But then if you can see number 4 and number 5, we focus on integrated water resources management, but we stress directly under condition of global change, because we want to have a specific focus on this global change or climate change. And also number 5, water governance based on science for mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. So this is the focus of UNESCO ISP 9 for this 9 phase. And not only that, we have another 3 additional working thematic areas, which also makes the total 8 working groups, which additional of hydrological system, river climate risk and water food energy nexus, groundwater and human settlements, and last but not least is eco-hydrology and water quality. So that is where eco-hydrology is becoming part of our UNESCO IHP programs, which focus on nature-based solution approach. And I will show you a little bit about UNESCO Water Family, because this is how our UNESCO IHP work together with others UNESCO Water Family in implementing our programs. So we have about 172 IHP national committees in many countries in the world. And we have about 70 UNESCO water-related chairs, which is based in the university in many countries. Also, we have about 17 ISP flagship initiative, which also focus on related to climate change and adaptation or resilience. Also, one ISP secretariat, which is us here in HQ, and then hydrologists in field office. Also, about 30 water category 2 centers, and 1 world water assessment program based in Italy. And not only general water family, we have also so-called UNESCO eco-hydrology family, because we identified out of our 100 water family, we have around 4 UNESCO eco-hydrology category 2 centers. For example, the one in Poland, European Regional Center on Eco-hydrology. We have in Ethiopia, African Regional Center for Eco-hydrology. Also in Indonesia, Asia Pacific Center for Eco-hydrology, and about 8 UNESCO chairs and UNITWIN networks, which very much work on eco-hydrology related things. So now under this IHP 9 phase, we are promoting the establishment of various demonstration sites where UNESCO implement eco-hydrology approach through demonstration site. And currently we have about 30 demonstration sites around the world. And as it is not enough, so we are promoting this approach to have more eco-hydrology demonstration site in the future. So, and our focus for demonstration site is to enhance ecosystem potential through application of ecohydrological approach in this specific demonstration site. And in line with that, we launched the call for new ecohydrology demonstration site since June this year. The call is just finished recently, October, and in fact today we have a meeting for Ecohydrology Scientific Advisory Committee to review this proposal that we accept, and so soon will be new demonstration sites coming. So as of today, we still have this 30 demonstration sites, as you seen in the figure there. We have about 3 in Africa, 10 in Asia Pacific, 10 in Europe, and 7 in Latin America and Caribbean. And we work to implement ecohydrology based at the catchment scale. So the different colors shown the different type of catchment, which is basin, rivers and lakes, inland wetlands, and also coastal or estuaries. So we implement this nature-based solution approach at the aquatic ecosystem, and that's why we call this approach as ecohydrology. So this UNESCO ecohydrology approach is a part of the transdisciplinary scientific approach to achieve water quality improvement, biodiversity enhancement, and also sustainable development. And this concept, we know the most challenges in the management of ecosystem is to increase water quality and also to increase water resource quantity and also to improve its quality. And at the same time, we need to reduce impact in the ecosystem so that we can achieve this objective. And so this ecohydrology seems as a right approach to do this kind of, to achieve this objective, where we also work at the concept of WBSR plus CE and plus PL, which is WBSR referred to water, biodiversity, ecosystem services, and resilient to climate and impact. And C and L focusing on culture and education, and P and L is focusing on law. So this is the framework where we want to work to achieve this ecohydrology approach by using the term improving this 4 main component, which is water, biodiversity, resilient, and ecosystem services. But at the same time, we will implement this also through improvement of culture component, education component, and also policy and law. And at the same time, ecohydrology is also work for impact reduction and resilient enhancement. So by reducing the impact, we will achieve the resilient enhancement in the ecosystem, and also it will be more sustainable and adaptable to climate. And I give one example here in, for example, one of the ecohydrology demonstration site in Putrajaya, Malaysia. We work by implementing water quality in the catchment, which is in the by developing the constructed wetlands, and then by using the wetland, its function as a filtration to improve water quality in the lake before entering the lake. So the lake water quality becoming good water, much better water quality. So we achieve the objective of water quality improvement. And then by having good water quality, we also achieve the improvement of the biodiversity in that habitat, because we're creating more nature habitat for all ecosystem, like a bird there, fish, and other species in this lake. And at the same time, because we have the improvement of biodiversity, at the same time, it's also increased the ecosystem services in that area. And it is proven by a study conducted in Putrajaya Lakes and Wetlands also before this, supported by UNESCO. We have a ecosystem services study for Putrajaya Lakes that it's shown like within the 10 years, the last 10 years, how much the ecosystem services increase in this specific catchment, and it will also give benefit to this Putrajaya Lakes and Wetlands area. And at the same time, by creating good catchment in Putrajaya Lakes, for example, we achieve the resilient to climate and adaptation to this area by having good water quality and beautiful lakes there. And it's creating more resilient to climate and adaptation. And also, it's also improve the another element, social element there, which is culture and adaptation. Culture and education. So by having a series of educational program, awareness raising program in Putrajaya, Malaysia. Also, not only that, because they also this initiative also in line with the policy and law in Putrajaya, where they have specific element Putrajaya green city towards green city, and also a low carbon program, which they work towards achieving this policy. Then it's creating a much sustainable or we call it catchment sustainability potential, so that because it's achieved this all main component of ecohydrology implementation, which our concept. And other initiative for UNESCO ecohydrology approach, of course, we work on the development, enhancement, and dissemination of scientific research through various publication or scientific publication related articles and so on. Also, in terms of promotion and establishment of new ecohydrology demonstration site, where we already launched and receiving many submission for new ecohydrology demonstration site. And all application is online in our ecohydrology web platform. Also, another approach that we promoting this starting this year, that we want to implement ecohydrology at the UNESCO designated site, which include UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, World Heritage Site, and also a Global Geopark. In fact, in the map that you have seen just now, we already have at least 4 demonstration sites are also part of the Biosphere Reserve, and 2 of them are also natural World Heritage Site. And another programs that we implement in line for our ecohydrology programs, we also conducted various training programs and workshop and symposium related to ecohydrology, focusing on Africa, of course, so and others region also. So at least within this year, we managed to have 4 workshop and training program in Africa, another 5 trainings and activities in Europe, and 2 in Asia Pacific, and some others in Latin America and Caribbean. Okay, so that's all my presentation. Welcome for a question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rahma. Do you have questions from the floor? Please don't be shy. If you have any simple questions, yes, it will be very much appreciated. But if not, maybe I might ask a very basic question to Rahma, because you use the term ecohydrology, no? And we are now talking about nature-based solutions. And I think the concept is similar, but do you see any difference from your side, from your point of view, ecohydrology and also nature-based solutions?
Okay, to answer this, yeah, it is similar, but also a little bit different. Similar in terms of ecohydrology is also part of nature-based solution, but not all nature-based solution is ecohydrology, because ecohydrology is only, we only implement nature-based solution of natural approach in the aquatic ecosystem, while nature-based solution you can implement in anywhere. You know, in the land, or in the just to plant the trees in anywhere. It's also nature-based solution to absorb the heat, for example, in the cities. But for ecohydrology approach, it must be in the aquatic ecosystem, which that's why we work at the catchment level, river, inland wetlands, coastal estuaries, and basin. So that's the main, but also in terms of the system, because we want to work at the dual regulation, that we want to balance in terms of ecological and hydrological component, and yeah, that's make the difference in term, and also to make sure the enhancement of the catchment the potential in the specific ecosystem, so then many other scientific and transdisciplinary approach to be implemented and to shown in this system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just for your information, because we are running a operandum project and we have many open laboratory sites, and I think one of them applied for your demonstration site. No, I don't want to influence, but just for your information.
Maybe I can, because today also, because we have a scientific advisory committee meeting. In fact, some of the scientific advisory committee is here also, 3 of them there. And today we also discussing and plan to have ecohydrology lab network, which is similar, a bit similar with this operandum, also living laboratory for nature-based solution. Maybe we can work together or see how it can be link, yeah, yeah. We have also colleagues from Italy, so maybe you can meet him later.
Thank you very much. So let's go to the next panelist, Dr. Nicolas Febvre, who is from the European Research Executive Agency and the European Commission. So floor is yours.
Thank you, Soichiro, and thank you to our host, UNESCO. Good afternoon to everyone. So I will, so it's a green one, right? Yeah. Okay, so I will talk to you about the EU R&I agenda, research innovation agenda, and how in its evolution, so it has contributed to promote, implement and upscale nature-based solution for climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. So over the last decade, so the European Commission has developed a comprehensive and strategic integrated approach to disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. So as part of its commitment for sustainable development. I think it's important also to remind that on March 2022, so in the 5th session of the United Nations Environmental Assembly, it made a resolution on adopting a multilateral agreed definition on nature-based solution, so which recognize the important role they play not only in the global response to climate change, but also in its social, economic, and environmental effects. So the integrated approach I was mentioning, so developed by the European Commission, so is exemplified so in several policies which are also mimicking so the global policy agenda. So, and the nature-based solution agenda is actually paralleled and intertwined so within this these different policies. So in 4 main thematics, so from biodiversity, climate, water and agriculture, and also urban. The European Green Deal is the main, let's say, overarching policy framework and policy priorities so for the Commission, with a set of different policies. So from biodiversity to climate, urban, farm to fork, and the nature-based solution initiatives and agenda is really mainstream. So within each of these policies, so to varying degrees. For example, the EU biodiversity strategy, which was updated in 2020, sorry, refers to the needs of measures so to incentivize, eliminate barriers so for the take-up of nature-based solutions. The EU bioeconomy strategy, also updated in 2018, so outline NbS as a tool so to rehabilitate urban brownfield sites, for example, apply nature-based remediation, stimulate green infrastructure to reduce the urban pressure on agricultural and forest land. Also another policy very important in the European Green Deal, so the EU Forest Strategy, which was updated very recently, So acknowledge nature-based solution, green infrastructure networks, so to achieve integrated multifunctional forest management. We talk a lot about disaster risk reduction, so I need to mention the EU action plan actually on the Sendai framework, which also take the main Sendai targets and apply them at the European level. And this action plan so actually encourage the use of nature-based solution as a systemic approach, so for urban and territorial resilience. And finally, but not least, but the EU strategy on adaptation to climate change, where nature-based solutions so have an active role, not only for coastal protection, but also for reducing the risk of extreme weather events. Sorry, I have no power anymore. But there are some limitations across these sectoral policies, so to enhance actually the deployment of this nature-based solution. Those limitations relate not only like to the fact that although multiple member states and EU policy instruments acknowledge the role of nature-based solution, they rarely contain quantitative and measurable targets relating to nature-based to NbS deployment and quality. Also, the risk awareness level might be high, maybe in some of the EU member states, but the national risk assessment that are carried out by member states actually underline the needs to further reduce and prevent vulnerabilities and strengthen disaster management cooperation. And these policies sometimes require no or only voluntary action in this regard. And finally, the current policy framework often neglects to consider the trade-offs which may occur, for example, when seeking both biodiversity conservation and human well-being goals. For example, social inequalities that are related to gentrification trends. So, although this policy mix is in place, the role of research and innovation has played a very important role in actually addressing those limitations. So I'm sorry for the well, you might actually see it better on the big screen, but that was the initial plan. So from the Commission, back in 2015. So when let's say the field was still an embryonic academic field, and we put together this roadmap to actually present the different steps where we wanted to be in the next 10 years. So we're starting with building the evidence base, so for nature-based solution, also for defining nature-based solutions, as for developing the NbS community of innovators, to provide evidence-based and knowledge, to advance the development, uptake, and upscale, and finally, to mainstream NbS within the international research innovation policy landscapes. And so, how did this roadmap translate over the last decade? Well, it translates into research innovation investment, which were quite consequent, with the funding of several projects in different thematics. So from science, policy, business, and society, from water and climate resilience. The conference today is organized by actually the two of the projects from the disaster risk reduction, addressing hydrometeorological risks, Physicos and Operandum. There also the health and well-being were addressed, and there were also research innovation action looking at governance, business, financing mechanism, also the insurance value of this nature-based solution, the restoration of ecosystem, climate and biodiversity, and finally water quality and security. So the idea was really to be encompassing in the way research innovation would be designed to inform the different policy initiatives at Commission level. So this is just a list of the different projects that were funded under the different thematics. This represented a total amount of 441 million euros, which is quite significant considering this was a really new thematic being funded. 46 projects so benefited from this investment. And the trend is actually growing, since in Horizon Europe there will be a continuity in the funding also of these nature-based solutions topics. So in the area, for example, of transformative change, addressing the biodiversity decline, and so on. It's also important to mention how these projects have worked together. Sorry, Fabrice mentioned, or no, you mentioned together, I think. Sorry, the different reports that were produced by the different research projects that were highlighted before. They worked actually within task forces, so around different thematics. So looking at both data management, so how to acquire the different knowledge, how to assess the performance, the impact of these solutions, how to enable better governance, business and finance mechanism, and so on. So these cluster task forces, so groups of different projects, really contributed to advance, develop, and uptake and upscale nature-based solutions, so across the EU and also beyond its border. So they worked on these transversal topic areas, and they aim really to synthesize like the different approaches, outputs, to co-produce materials that would be useful not only for, let's say, identification of research gaps, but also for policy output and also for practitioners. I think it's important to mention that. So reaching the different communities. So where can you find actually this knowledge? Because there was this morning this question on legacy and on what's happening. So after the project has ended, so in that spirit, OPLA, which means open platform, so is the official EU repository for nature-based solution, which was created as a joint activity, so between two projects in the previous framework program, FP7, and Operas and Openness. And this and OPLA, so together with also other platforms such as Think Nature and also the Urban Atlas, so are actually gathering all this information on the best practices, for example, for these solutions, and also the GeoKeep that we mentioned this morning. So there is really an effort like to integrate all this knowledge. It's still a bit scattered, and there is still some efforts to do in that respect, but at least the information is out there and is ready to be used. And this comes to actually the new roadmap, which is being developed now and which will be released next year in spring, which was really articulated about 4 main thematics. The first pillar is really on advancing, so the nature-based solution knowledge and data. And based on that, so there will be 3 other pillars. Pillar 2 on closing the research implementation gaps. This is really an axis of research where there will be particular attention in Horizon Europe. Also on the mainstreaming of the role of the nature-based solution for policy makings. And finally, improving so the exchange, capacity building and awareness of nature-based solutions so that their level of acceptance is endorsed within the EU. Thank you very much for your attention, and this is it.
Thank you. If you have a question from the floor, no. No, I have a quick question about this opera, because I think this morning we also discussed that there are many projects funded by European Commissions, not only on nature-based solution, but also eco-related project. And we talked about we need some synergies between the different projects. And I see this opera, I think this is the platform where you would try to connect other projects, or?
No, so the objectives of this platform was actually to gather all the different case studies. So when we were in the early stage, so for example, nature-based solutions were mostly implemented so in cities. So they were tested. So they were like the results about performance, about how we evaluate which indicators. So that's why there were case studies so per cities. Now with new information, so coming from example from the Hydromet projects, there will be more information so on actually large-scale demonstration of this solution, so which can be actually inserted in the platform. The platform served also as a hub, like to ask questions, for example, if you were a policymakers and wanted like to learn more about nature-based solution, so you could actually ask experts. There was a Askopla actually tool, and so the idea was really to have this platform as a hub of knowledge, as a hub also for the community, so to build upon, and also inspire maybe other cities so to act actually and choose nature-based solution.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. So let's go to the last panelist, Dr. Silvana Di Sabatiano from Bologna University, and also she is a project leader of the Operandum project, which finishing at the end of 2022 with UNESCO. So floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. And as a last speaker, I take the opportunity to thank the organizer and our host, so Soichiro, the team, and all the UNESCO team. And also, I take another moment to thank all Operandum partners that are here present, and also the Fusicos partner. In fact, we are two people in taking this opportunity to present. That is also Amy Owen. The idea was to try to take some key points from the two projects to share with you in 10 minutes. So it's not an easy task, but I really wanted to thank all the partners of the two projects. Nicola reminded us that there were 35 million behind. Now we are represented at 21 by Operandum and Fusicos, 26 partners in Operandum, 15 in Fusicos, and we have done a journey together for over 4.5 years. We will end up in December, end of December, so we have a few months to finish up and present all the results to the Commission. Will be next Fusicos in April, and we'll have another continuing journey with Reconnect for another year and a half, roughly. So what have I tried to do? Probably, as I said, it's difficult to take the key elements of such large project, but let's try, and let's try to, in a way, to pinpoint some of the results in what we have heard. So in this session, we have had intervention from very high level. We are the people that work on the field somehow, are the researchers, are stakeholders, and many others, business enablers, innovation actors, and others that have worked together for these years. I would like to start with a paper that actually the first author is from Reconnect. We tried together one, it's one of the many research papers that we have developed. I have to mention that between the three projects, we have around 60, I guess 60, 70 research peer review papers. I have roughly counted between the three projects. This is one of them. Why I wanted to put some of the slides, two figures there, to remember two aspects. One, nature-based solutions, although very new, in fact, the definition of UCN was reminded us this morning, started in 2016, roughly. This is when we were starting putting up together the proposal. But the topic has been with us for a long time, but it had different names. So what we did, we tracked back the different names that nature-based solution had, and trying to form and also to condense what is behind the co-design and implementation of nature-based solutions. But here, as Soichiro and other speakers have, actually Fabrice reminded us that when we talk about hydrometeorological risk reduction, NbS has a different connotation. So here, and our challenge at the beginning of the projects have been to address with a small implementation a problem that is at basin, at the catchment level, at the coastal area level. And this is a completely different story than implementing nature-based solution in a city context. In fact, as I said, we were the first, so we had lots to learn. So what have we learned? Okay, we have heard two words that have been with us for a long time. One is Living Lab, but is Open Lab. What we have put together is a concept that is Open Air Lab, that in a way it's in operandum, but is also in Fusicos, because their demonstration sites are called living labs. So the open air laboratory is intended as an evolution of the living lab that is suited for project in cities. What are the elements that are different, and what have been the elements that have made us to gather information from the different aspects? We all have to deal with climate forcing. It has been repeated that the forcing has to be considered. So we need to consider the diversity in the areas, so the hotspots. The Mediterranean is an hotspot, but equatorial countries also experience a different effect of climate change. But when we have that, then, and we select the NbS to reduce a risk that is associated to the climate change, we need then to be effective somehow. We need also, or we needed at the start, to prove that science is a part of the demonstration. So it's not only because we have lots of co-benefits, but at the same time we need to request that the solution is fit for the purpose. In order to do that, so we tried to embed the best we had from the scientific world, so the techniques from the monitoring from the satellite or other typology of monitoring, together with the numerical modeling that has to be multi-scale, and also promote innovation. Innovation has a different connotation. Innovation is from the social aspects is gathered from the interaction with the stakeholders that are facilitators of the implementation of our solutions, and also the patents that have allowed us to develop those solutions through the life of the projects. So this would allow us then to go towards the upscaling and the replication. Another slide that I would like to share with you is when we talk about NbS and we talk about the reduction of hydrometeorological risk, we know that we need to take into account all the many initiatives. One of the initiatives that is in place is the one associated to the climate change service. And in here, it's somehow described that the adaptation to climate change require two processes. One that is top-down, but there is another one that is bottom-up. What we will do, and it is what we have learned through implementing our project, is that natural-based solutions provide a method of integrating into something that is top-down experience from the bottom. In fact, when we talk about risk, it has been mentioned that the risk is the one that we need to mitigate. We talk about hazard, we talk about vulnerability, we talk about exposure. What we have clarified is that, of course, NbS cannot work on a short term on the hazard, okay? Because it will take years since we will reverse the sign. But it can act on vulnerability and on exposure. So two things that we could also ask to the natural-based solution. It's another question that was not obvious at the beginning of our projects. So let me share something that may appear as technical, but this is simple. What we tried to do in order to promote the upscaling and the replication is to see what do we measure? What are the indicators? We are full of indicators, 100 indicators, 150 indicators, and we can add, we can diminish. No one understands what to do. But let's be practical. One way of grouping our indicators is between two categories. We have been discussing a lot about this. One is related to the functioning of the NbS, because one thing that we call it in our schema, one can call in different way, but the concept is that there is a category of indicators that is related to the functioning of the NbS. And another one that we call impact variable is those that instead is related to the risk that we wanted to mitigate. Once this is clear, I think that we have liberty of choosing the indicator according to what is available. Because if we go to national authority or whatever authority to implement our solution, and we go there with 150 indicators, it will be difficult. So let's be flexible, have two categories, and then push those, let's say, implementation. Now, I would like something that would make probably Nicola happy. I don't know if he's happy, but what is in here is, I tried, okay, we can look at the many cases in the literature, but we have done something. So if we put together Reconnect, Fusicos, and Operandum, now we populate here. I don't know, it doesn't mean to be very meaningful, but it means to be beautiful, and also means that we have populated with cases lots of Europe. And if we wanted to be, and we have still a bit of time, we can say that we have created open air laboratories. So I have to thank all the OL leaders afterwards, and also the demonstrator sites leaders in Fusicos and the demonstrators site leaders in Reconnect. And here we have tried then to map what this project have put new that were not there. And there are probably 60 cases that we have tried to categorize according to the hazards. Our aim was to be able to select NbS that were able to mitigate the risk, and then the hazards that we have identified are from droughts to storm surge, avalanche, landslides, and etc. So then we have in place, we don't have time, as I said, we don't have in place, we have in place all the data that refer to the monitoring, that refer to the modeling, that refer to the stakeholder engagement and list of the stakeholders, et cetera, of all these cases that are novel and we would like to maintain. Now, another little snapshot, not to impress you because it's not meant to be understood, but again, it's a way of clustering all our cases according to the hazards. And they said, this is something new that were not there before. And we have learned a lot through this because all these cases have been co-designed, co-developed, and gone to the field through the pandemic. So it's a great challenge in there. So I wish to. So what was important for us, and again, I may talk for the two projects at least, for us was important to build a journey towards that could be documented towards the evidence building. It emerged pretty early in talking with the stakeholders for the co-design that if you didn't have evidence that that solution worked, they wouldn't select that. Why you want to have a natural-based solution when you have an avalanche on, on your behind you? No, probably no one would do that. So the perception of the risk or the perception of that solution has the same level of guarantee than concrete. That has been one of the key points in selecting our solutions. And then that meant that one had to develop scientific-based evidence for the solution before implementing them. Okay, so we have many. I would like to mention a case, not because it's from Italy, but it's because it's from Fusicos, and it's one of the successful case that is in the lower Secchio River in Lake Massachucoli, that is in Tuscany, and it's one of the successful case where they had to put together lots of stakeholders, farmers that were using the water from the lake. And as we all know, when there is a drought, but you still want to feed your population, so there is always this compromise between how much water you use, how much you produce, and how manage this dialogue between the farmers that want to produce, take the water, and still maintain the good level. And that this case that has been very documented is a successful one, and now everyone is happy. In fact, one of the success behind this story is that one has to dialogue to maintain, let's say, the interest in respected in a good way. And these are also what we did. Going back also in some type of formalization, again, this is a case from our colleague Fusicos. the co-design, as I said, and the keeping the stakeholder engagement process is a key. When we talked about, when we implemented the Hydromet projects, the list of the stakeholders were not available because the previous experience were in cities. Addressing this problem meant to talk with the different authorities, and the different authorities, local authorities, the number of the local authorities were different in different countries. Not even in Europe we have that. If you take a lake, maybe there are 5 authorities that work on that lake. Okay, and if you don't involve one, maybe you don't have the permission to do anything. Okay, things like that. So stakeholder was really important, and now we have documented which one we needed to consult, which one, what is the route to go towards the implementation. So again, these are other cases from Fusicos. These are examples of what can be done in agricultural land. So this is this beautiful idea of the buffer strips, and also introducing these gaps between the cultivated land with parts that can benefit somehow for, you know, even what the same example that is done naturally in the UK, I think, but in Italy it's not it's something new. So this is some of the example, and another element that I want to mention is that this co-design that went through the selection with the stakeholders, etc., bring together one other aspect, that is the innovation. This case that is here represented is that is in the Panaro River. Is another example in Italy. Panaro is one of the affluents. Anyway, it's in the Po Valley. I don't think it's an affluent of Po, but anyway, it's flooded often. So there we tested the green deep roots, and that was also patented. The plants came from a patent. But another point, I know that I have to keep the time because I talked too much, but that those solutions have been tested in scale. So we have results from laboratory testing, especially to check what would be the effect of reducing the flow velocity at the sides of the river embankment. And of course, we have done other monitoring with the drones to see also what would be the growth and also the maintenance of this solution. I will close very soon. We have also done other solutions that are there in place. One is the dune for coastal erosion, and I will finish up just with a snapshot saying that all these solutions have been tested through numerical modeling, and we have evidence and outputs from this simulation of the fact that sometimes two solutions work well together. So this is the case of the dune together with the reinforcement of the benthic layer with the Posidonia and other things. So I really thank you, and the idea was to inspire you to look up at our website and our platform, because all this data are available. Look up also for our publications, because we have produced many where all the details from different aspects of the project are documented, and also the many deliverables that we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Silvana. My bad management of the time, because I thought I have a lot of time for the question and answer, but we are already approaching the end of the sessions, and also the interpreters need to told us to finish in 7 8 minutes. So I would like to ask you 1 minute for each, maybe. Yeah, we received some questions, but let's go directly into the conclusion. I would like to ask you to make like a one message, maybe in 1 minute, for the member states who are joining us here, for the importance, for the efficacy of the nature-based solutions, how we can work together to scale up or scale up the nature-based solutions. I think question is clear, and so because of the time, maybe like 1 minute for each.
That's tough in 1 minute. I'll try to gain a bit of time and be 30 seconds. I think that one of the main recommendations I have is that when you want to address a risk reduction issue or problem, that you make sure that all the potential solutions are being considered by whoever is making these decisions in your government or in your agencies. So that means considering engineering solutions, nature-based solutions, hybrid solutions. In that case, you will probably see that in many cases, the nature-based solution or the hybrid solution will be playing a favorable role in terms of reducing risks, and that's how you have more of these solutions being implemented on the ground in the longer run.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, what I think is that from this morning and throughout the day, we have received the demonstrations that nature-based solutions are extremely relevant in many contexts. And maybe now it's really the time again to take this two-direction approach, going from the project to the policymakers and the authorities for spreading the word and for explaining what it is about and for convincing them, and on the other way around from the different authorities from sub-regional to national to local level to really embed this notion of nature-based solution in the strategic planning they are developing. So again, it is just a kind of being coherent, breaking the silos and working together because the results are already there. Thank you.
Maybe my recommendation would be that whatever nature-based solution you are implementing, make sure that it is tailored to the situation. Tailored in terms of human capacity, tailored in terms of financial capacity, also in terms of political situation too, because you cannot replicate everything everywhere. So I think that you really have to look at the situation before you decide to one nature-based solution. And we have also, as Mr. Reynaud said, look at all the possibility, and then you choose the one which is best fit the situation you have in 360 degrees. Thank you.
Okay, so as I mentioned in my presentation, we work for directly implement this eco-hydrology approach at the demonstration site, at the catchment scale, and hence between or among the demonstration sites can also refer to another demonstration site. So as the demonstration site itself function as a living lab, can give a good example on how to implement eco-hydrology. By using different tools to implement eco-hydrology, because some demonstration sites use phytotechnology, for example, such as the wetlands, or any plantation. Some demonstration sites use fauna technology, using specific species to absorb the pollution, which we can be as example for other demonstration sites. Some use flow regulation, for example, or even an infrastructure engineering eco-hydrological approach also. So many types of demonstration site at the many types of catchment, which can be a good reference for others to implement similar or can be adopt some good examples in their demonstration site. And this ecohydrology also give a holistic solution for catchment, for improvement the catch ecosystem. So not only for improving water quality, but also improving biodiversity, ecosystem services, and resilient to impact and climates. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that maybe my suggestion would be to really focus like the attention on NbS education, and well, since we have already lots of information already available, sometimes it's not especially understandable also by the, let's say, the common population, depending on the audience. There is some efforts, I think, to do on how we educate people about nature-based solution and, let's say, sustainable development in general, and starting maybe from the youth generation and inserting maybe new curricula on sustainable development and nature-based solution by extent. I think there are lots of efforts to be there, and if we increase the focus on NbS education, then the level of acceptance will be increased. There will be also less, let's say, trade-offs or compromise related to that. So, and also educating ourselves, I think, because this is a constantly evolving field, and I think that would be a good start. Thanks.
I will be quick. I think most of the things have been said. If there is an addition, is that through these years of implementing the large-scale demonstration project, we have learned a lot, and there is a lot that can be synthesized and can be shared with the large community. So I really hope that all people present at this conference can make an effort of continuing to the dialogue and try to not duplicate the work, try to learn from each other. And we all work with nature-based solution from a different angle with a different role. But let's see if we could continue the dialogue and see what we could put on the plate. So this is the hope, and this is my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for all the participants physically, and also I hear many of them are listening online. And also I would like to thank all the panelists today to give us a big insight how to promote the nature-based solutions. So I would like to close this information sessions, but we are going to have cocktails from 5:30 upstairs on the 7th floor. So maybe participant or delegations, maybe you missed to ask some questions, maybe in a more relaxed atmosphere, please come to the panelists to ask any questions you have on the nature-based solution. Okay, thank you very much again, and let's try to continue to work. Thank you very much.